Okay, if we remember, our famous hero Odysseus comes up with the idea to win the Trojan War. Huzzah! He uses his intellect, right? He doesn't have parents that are immortal. He has parents that are mortal. Everyday Greek boys and girls have parents that are mortal. Everyday Greek boys and girls aren't super strong, like Heracles or Hercules or Achilles or some of these other heroes, nor is Odysseus. He's very relatable, right? He wins with his intelligence. He wins with his cunning. And the Trojan War is finally over after 10 years. We then saw some of his tests and allies and enemies along the way, such as the Cicones, which we briefly covered. But then in our book, we read about the Lotus Eaters. Once again, you got a model, leave no man behind. Odysseus goes back for them, but you also have a warning in his men that too much of a good thing can be problematic. It's not the use, it's the abuse. And his men abused the lotus plant, and therefore they gave up hope of home. So you've got the warning, too much of a good thing is bad for you. Then you have the model for Odysseus, leave no man behind. From there, he battled the Cyclops, which we know is Poseidon's son, Polyphemus. Lots of stuff there. He should have listened to his men, but he was too curious for his own good and literally got some of them killed. He also thinks, right, they were stuck between a rock and a hard place, but a good soldier doesn't act too quick in battle, otherwise they would have been stuck. He uses a lot of cunning here. He tells them his name is nobody. He gets the Polyphemus, the Cyclops, drunk. They blind him. He then also uses intellect and ties his men underneath these giant rams or these goats so they can get out of the cave. But the warning, he wanted to take the credit, right? He wanted the fame. He wanted the glory. And if he didn't say anything, literally nobody would have gotten it. So he yells back, "It's Odysseus," and then almost gets his ship sunk. As his men are saying, what are you doing? Be quiet. This is unnecessary. He does it again and almost gets his ship sunk. So you've got lots of models and warnings. Again, this is the assignment for week 3, to retell one of these stories and tell us what we're supposed to learn. Is it a model? And if so, what are we supposed to learn? Or is it a warning? And if so, what we're supposed to learn? So we continue on here. We are about to, in our book, read a little bit of this about King Aeolus. So let us turn to where they go after the Cyclops. It's book 10, but we've got some summary here. Odysseus and his men next land on the island of Aeolus. This is on your character chart. Your character charts are not due as of this point. They are really for you. But we've got lots of people we have met so far. King Aeolus is another one. He is the Wind King. They stay with him for about a month. To extend his hospitality, King Aeolus gives Odysseus 2 parting gifts: a fair west wind that will blow his fleet toward Ithaca, and a great bag holding all the unfavorable stormy winds. Within sight of home, and while Odysseus is sleeping, the men open the bag. Now, before this, what our book is not telling you, Odysseus stays up days on end because he doesn't trust his men. And he finally sees home way out there, and so he's exhausted, and he goes to bed, and he tells his men, "Don't look in the bag." Well, he goes to sleep. The men are kind of all talking to each other like, well, wait a minute. He got this great gift from the king. Why shouldn't we get some of this gift? Why does he hoard it for himself? A warning. 1, listen to your commander. The chain of command is very important. 2, once again, curiosity can darn near sink a ship, or at least in this case, blow it off course. So curiosity got the best of the men. They opened the winds, and they blow all the way back to King Aeolus's island. The king says, and Odysseus says, "Hey, gee, thanks for the bag of winds. Do you think you can do it again?" And King Aeolus says, "No, this is a bad sign from the gods. Clearly someone's got it out for you. I don't want to help you. You are cursed by the gods." The discouraged mariners next stop briefly in the land of the Lastrygonians, fierce cannibals who bombard the fleet with boulders. Only Odysseus, his ship, and his crew of 45 survive. So now we're down to 1 ship. The lone ship then sails to Aea, home of the goddess Circe. Now, Game of Thrones fans, you know the name Circe. Circe has kind of been synonymous with witchcraft or a witch throughout the years. Now, she is, of course, considered to be a witch. There, Odysseus divides his men into two groups. Eurylochus, who I do believe is on your chart, Eurylochus leads one platoon to explore the island. He's like his right-hand man. He's his trusted captain, while Odysseus stays behind on the ship with the remaining crew. In the wild wood, they found an open glade around a smooth stone house, the hall of Circe, and wolves and mountain lions lay there, mild in her soft spell, fed on her drug of evil. So as they're approaching, there's all these, animals in the yard, and the men are kind of like, what the heck? What, lions and wolves are just laying around the yard? Notice it says, fed on her drug of evil. A little foreshadowing. None would attack. Oh, it was strange, I tell you, but switching their long tails, they faced our men like hounds, who look up when their masters come home with tidbits for them, as he will from a table. Humbly, those wolves and lions with mighty paws fawned on our men, who met their yellow eyes and feared them. In the entrance way, they stayed to listen. Inside her quiet house they heard the goddess Circe. Low she sung in her beguiling, charming voice, while on her loom she wove ambrosial fabric, sheer and bright. By that craft known to the goddesses of heaven, no one would speak until Pilotes, most faithful and likable of my officers, said, Dear friend, no need for stealth. There's a young weaver singing a pretty song to set the air a-tingle on these lawns and pavin courts. Goddess she is, or lady, shall we greet her? So, reassured, they all cried out together, and she came swiftly to the shining doors to call them in. All but Eurylochus, who feared a snare. Again, Odysseus is sort of best captain, right-hand man, and he's the wise one. He sensed a trap. The innocents went after her. Another little tiny model. Keep your guard up. On thrones she seated them. Remember, all Eurylochus. On thrones she seated them in lounging chairs, while she prepared a meal of cheese and barley and amber honey mixed with Parmean wine, adding her own vile pinch to make them lose desire or thought of dear fatherland. Scarce they had drunk when she flew after them with her long stick and shut them in a pigsty. Bodies, voices, heads, and bristles, all swinish now, though minds were still unchained. So squealing, in they went, and Circe tossed them acorns, masts, and cornberries, fodder for hogs who rut and slumber on earth. She literally turned them into swine. That's why all those animals out there, she turns men into different animals, so she turned Odysseus's men into swine. Down to the ship Eurylochus came running to cry alarm. Foul magic doomed his men, but working with dry lips to speak a word, he could not, being so shaken. Blinding tears welled in his eyes, foreboding filled his heart. When we were frantic questioning him, at last we heard the tale, our friends were gone. So Eurylochus tells Odysseus what happened and begs him to sail away from Circe's island. Again, a good leader doesn't leave men behind. So against this advice, however, Odysseus rushes to save his men from the enchantress. Now on the way there, he meets the god Hermes. I know he's on your chart. We've seen him before. He's the messenger god. He's the one that flew down with the note from Athena to tell Calypso time to release him. Of course, this actually happens later, but remember, this is a flashback. So he meets Hermes along the way. Hermes gives him a magical plant called moly or mole to protect him from Circe's power. Geez, I don't know, it sounds holy almost, doesn't it? Literally, as in the term holy moly. I kid you not, this is where holy moly comes from. So he gives him this mole, often pronounced, or moly, and warns Odysseus that he must make the goddess swear she will play no tricks. Armed with the mole, so it's the protection against her power. In Hermes' warning, Odysseus arrives at Circe's palace. Circe gives Odysseus the magic drink, but it does not affect him. And because he has the mole, the protection, and he threatens to kill her with a sword. Circe turns the pigs back to men, but puts them all into a trance. They stay for 1 year, until Odysseus finally begs her to let them go home. She replies that they must first visit the land of the dead and hear a prophecy from the ghost of Tiresias. So, Oh no, what happened? So he's on his way to Hades. If you remember the hero's journey and plugging Odysseus in, the ordinary world, king of Ithaca. Call to adventure, Helen is the face that launched 1,000 ships. The Greeks sail to Troy. He, of course, says, no, I've got a beautiful wife, Penelope, who was on your chart, and I have a wonderful newborn son, Telemachus, who was on your chart. Why would I want to go? The meeting with the mentor, the council of the kings, all the Greek city-states kings got together and said, hey, it'll be good for us. So he goes. Crossing the threshold, of course, he sails to Troy. Test challenges enemies and allies. We've got a bunch of these. Circe, Calypso, the Cyclops, King Aeolus. I mean, all of these are tests and challenges, right? Then we got the approach. Along the way, Odysseus and his men encounter Circe. She is a nymph or a witch or a sorceress. In some translations, it's a lesser goddess. She turns some of his men into swine. Odysseus, like a good leader, does not leave him behind. Stays a whole year. Faces Circe. Gets the help from the mole. And again, the approach. Circe tells him about a secret route to a secret place. That is, if you want to get home, go see Tiresias in the underworld. And there we have Book 10, Circe, the Grace of the Witch.